said, you were enough starting at age 7.
Yeah.
How could you not be enough now?
All right, people, get ready. You probably remember Jamie Winship from episodes 354 and 394 because they are some of our most downloaded Dream Think Do episodes ever. But if you don't know Jamie, strap in, people, because this is going to be awesome. As a kid, Jamie had a dream of becoming a cop, and then he fulfilled that dream and spent an early season of his life becoming an award-winning police officer in Washington, D.C., solving cases that people thought were unsolvable, shutting down crime rings and drug operations, and then training up other officers to do the same, all by experimenting with ways to hear from God. Then in the next season of life, he and his amazing wife, Donna, he married up, just like me. They spent decades bringing peaceful solutions to some of the world's highest conflict zones, like Indonesia and Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, Israel, using these same strategies. They've got incredible stories of breakthrough, reconciliation, and true healing within groups you wouldn't think was possible. Then in this season, I'm very glad to say they are back in the U.S., and they are walking out this process in divided cities. They're helping educators, entrepreneurs, government leaders, and professional athletes. They call this process the identity method, and it helps people resolve inner conflict and unlock new levels of creativity, learning, and connection and collaboration. Seriously, Jamie and Donna are helping leaders, teams, and entire communities step into their true identity and thrive. And as you heard in episode 354 and 94, they've got some amazing stories. I can't help but mention that Jamie also is the author of the best-selling book, Living Fearless. We talked about it in the last episode. I will put it in the show notes. If you haven't grabbed a copy of this book, you want to. Trust me, it's amazing. Jamie has navigated some wild seasons in life, so I'm excited to have him back to share some of these stories and strategies, especially for those of us who are choosing to step into new seasons or those who are having new seasons thrust upon them. If that's you, you are listening to the right episode. So let's get to this. Jamie, welcome back to Dream Think Do, baby.
Oh man, thank you. I'm always excited to be with you, Mitch. Like, you like make me excited about life.
I love it. That means the world to me. I love what you guys are doing. I'm so excited to have these conversations. I was actually telling my wife this morning, I was like, this is why you have podcasts, so you can have a regular conversation with Jamie Winship. It's all worth it. So I love it. I love it. So I mentioned seasons, and you and I have been talking about seasons behind the scenes, all that stuff. Let's talk a little bit about it. You've been a police officer. You've been kind of the Jason Bourne of missionaries as far as going into some of the most dangerous places in the world, and you guys have had huge impact. It's just amazing. So you have had some serious seasons. I mean, now you're back in the States. You're working with cities, like divided cities, and bringing connection. You're getting to work with entrepreneurs and globe changers and pro athletes and all that stuff. Like, how would you describe the season that you're in right now?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I mean, so I'm 65. So it's funny how, when you talk about seasons, there's like the seasons that the world has, might have,
Yeah,
like, so I'm 65. And so that's the season of Medicare and, like,
right.
and then,
That's what I call an era. Like, there are certain parts of like this time thing where there's eras, right? Like that, like age. It's the parts that we don't get to choose. They're kind of chosen for us. So like that's an era. You're in the 65
yeah.
era, right? So
Yeah.
that's a part of it. Yeah.
Right. And so so there's some pressure in our culture and in the Western US culture to, like, if you're successful, you might be winding down, and that kind of thing. And so that's a certain kind of pressure. But the season I feel like that Don and I are in is like it's probably a season of like handing off, like
Mm-hmm.
handing off what we do to some younger people that have been with us a long time, guys that when we were in Iraq in the 2000s, they were like 22 and 23 years old and have been working with us forever. And so now they're in their 40s or whatever. And just being able to to pass on to them what we've learned over the years and watch them. So I feel like that, kind of like a, that like a mentor, more like an elder kind of person. I don't
Yeah.
admit that, but that's really, we were just talking today about something we want, an experimental thing we want to do. And I was saying to Donna, like, let's figure out how to write what we want to do. And everything she wrote was not us doing it. It was these younger, she wrote me right out of the whole thing. And so,
That's right. She wrote you out of that script, man.
right out of my own
Yeah.
script.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm in that season where, you don't want to, you work hard and you make it to certain places with the Lord guiding you, but there's a time to like pass it on.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and what I love about that too is from a season's perspective, that's wisdom. It like in an entrepreneurial perspective, that's scalability,
Right.
right? Like you are doing things that are going to allow you to impact even more people, which I'm wildly grateful for. But yeah, it's one of those where when you're in the season, it's like the vantage point is a little bit different than those that look from outside it.
Yeah, and the guy that mentored me, McCollum, he always, I mean, he's still out there himself. But he would always say to me that his challenge in life was staying too long in places. You hold on too long, and so he always pressed me to, like, Jesus knew exactly when to show up. He knew exactly what to say. He knew when to stop talking, and he knew when to leave. You need to know all those things. Like a lot of times we don't.
That's huge.
Leave. Yeah, I feel.
I love it. It's funny. You would appreciate this. I got to teach at a ministry for young adults, and I got enough gray hair. They give me the permission to come in once in a while. But I was talking on that very subject, and I chose to wear a winter coat. Now, this was late June. I think the heat index of that day was 102, something like that. I went up on stage wearing this big, puffy, insulated North Face jacket. Didn't explain it other than I joked. I said, hey, just so you guys aren't worried that the old guy needs a blankie to stay warm, I said, this is a sermon analogy, so stay with me. But we talked about that very thing, that sometimes we are called to move into new seasons, or sometimes if the seasons change and we need to adapt, but we're tempted to hold on to things from past seasons, right? And I said, what's amazing about that is it's so easy to see that in others. It's a lot harder to see it in ourselves. So I said, that you probably were like, what's the old guy wearing the insulated jacket for? But it's like, sometimes we need to let go of things from past seasons. And then, I threw the jacket off. It was very liberating. And I mean, I'd been sweating like a pig. So.
Yeah, that's a fantastic illustration. I love that. I'm going to steal that from you maybe.
Yeah, use it, man. Give me credit once and then use it 50 more times. That's
that's so right. And you, our tendency, because the way reality works, it goes from order to disorder to reorder all the time. It's order, disorder, reorder. And when we're in the season, you can't go to reorder without disorder. And so when we move out of that order into that disorder, that liminal time, that the tendency is always to try and go backward to get the order back. But you want to go into the reorder, but it's scary, and we resist it. It's funny, when I say this all the time. When I was in the police department, I went in the 80s, and every time, and I was in a big department, and every time anyone introduced an innovation into the department, all of the old guys were like, "We don't need that. We don't want that stuff. We don't need it." It was like, "We're going to put computers in your cars. We don't want computers in our. We like a notepad and a pen. We don't need a."
That's the way we do it.
Yeah. Nothing will be better.
That's the way it's done.
Yeah. And then, mainly because we were afraid to type and drive. We didn't know if we could ever get coordinated enough to type and drive, and we wrecked a lot of cruisers trying to figure it out. But it's funny how, when you get that, when you sense that shift coming, how quick we will push against it, because it just scares us sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know that we've ever gotten to talk about this, but I got to interview one of Richard Fosbury's peers, and Richard Fosbury's, famous for the Fosbury flop, the first guy to go over the high jump backwards.
Yeah.
And it's because they moved in mats. Before that, it was sawdust. They were landing in piles of sawdust. But I didn't get to ask Richard Fosbury, but I got to ask one of his peers, somebody who was actually on one of his teams and all that stuff. And I asked him, because this major innovation was to roll in these mats that kept them safe, that made things possible, all this kind of stuff. I said, hey, what did you think of the mat, because Richard Fosbury was the only one to go over the high bar backwards. Everybody, like in his autobiography, his teacher or his coaches were like, Rich, you look like you're having a seizure in the air. Stop doing it.
Yep.
You know, until he won state, he won nationals, won a gold, medal at the Mexico City Olympics, and nobody else adapted their style. Like everybody else had the mat. Nobody else adapted their style. And I talked to one of his peers, like, what did you think the minute you saw the mat? And in a nanosecond, he was like, I hated the mat. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. And it kind of surprised him. I don't think anybody had ever asked him, but he like it was like ferocious, his response. And I was like, why did you hate the mat? And he said, instantly, I just thought, now everybody can do the high jump.
Wow.
And I remember walking back to my car after this interview going, oh my gosh, I wonder how many opportunities I've totally been blinded to because I first was ticked off by them. So what would you say in this season, what's something you're learning for you? Like, I mean, we have talked about the identity method. I want to so dive into that, but for you, like what's something that's what was your order, disorder, reorder? Like what's something for that for you?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I haven't really ever talked about this, so
this is fun.
Ready to talk to here to you, Mitch. I'll do it. But so so we've been in the States for a while now, and we were working in Seattle and out there, and when COVID struck, which was a forced transition for a lot of us, but.
Right, exactly.
We moved back east to be close to my parents and Donna's parents, and during that time, during the COVID time, so we're back on the East Coast in a small community, which we haven't lived in a small community in our whole life, really, and so smaller town, and which Mitch, because you've been here, but. And so that was a weird transition for me and for Donna to all of a sudden be in this small town, to be relatively close to her parents and my parents, which we've never been close to our whole married 42 years. We've always
like decades of time, and not just a couple of states away. You have lived, on the other side of the planet for a significant, if not a majority part of that time. Yeah.
Donna used to ask me when we first moved to Indonesia. She said, "We're moving as far away on the globe as you can get from my parents. Is there a reason for that?"
Is there something we need to talk about?
I'm not saying anything.
That's right. I'm not even making eye contact right now.
But so when we got into proximity to our parents, and we were still like 4 hours away, but both my parents passed during that time. Both my father first, and right after my mom, and so when my mother passed away, it had an effect on me that was very deep and profound, which I wasn't prepared for at all. I mean, we have a close family, but we're not. Death has never been a thing anyone's ever been afraid of. It's it's
right.
We know the Lord, so it's just. And in COVID, you couldn't really even do the funeral thing. It was just
right.
It was over.
Such a surreal time.
So it wasn't a big emotional. And I talked to her on the phone, a couple of weeks before she passed. But what happened was my mom was a great believer, and she's a very disciplined person, and she wasn't a real nurturer. That just wasn't how she was raised, and my dad wasn't either. And so I would have never been able to articulate this, except when she died, it felt like something, like I was released into some new level of emotion that I've never experienced before. And it was like, she'd always been there, and she was she was very big on don't do things for your own ego, and life's not about, doing stuff for yourself and all this. It's discipline and spiritual disciplines and all that. Very austere, Spartan living and that kind of thing. When she passed, it's like that person wasn't there anymore. And I was feeling very emotional, and it was like the Lord was saying to me, in this season of your life, I'm inviting you into the depth of your own emotion.
Wow.
You've never really accessed before, because of how you were raised. And it's like, so something moved out of the way, and all of a sudden I could feel, the Lord said to me, part of your identity is nurturer, but you've never known it. And so, yeah, and
Wow.
so I've got all these huge emotions, and I really like I've turned like super emotion. Like I told Donna, she saw it immediately. She's like, "What is you are?"
Who is this guy?
She likes
Yeah,
it. I mean, she really likes it.
I bet.
It is a weird thing for me. So, part of the seasons is the things that God's inviting us into in the different seasons is a lot deeper than just location or what you're doing, but just into deeper levels of understanding yourself. And it's so interesting to me that God reveals things to yourself in certain seasons. It's not all at once. It's
Yep.
when you're ready. It's when certain things in your life shift, and so it's been a really beautiful time, and I've really been trying to learn what it means to nurture and receive nurture, because I have never done it.
Wow.
I've never
Yeah.
like, but it makes me more, yeah, compassionate towards people, and yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing that's been going on to me in the last year is working. She died a year ago. Like, it's been just dealing with all these deep emotions. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
It's beautiful, but that's new, right?
Totally
Like that is new, and
very
oftentimes new feels weird. Like our brain will often identify new as wrong
yeah.
because it feels different, right? So I can only imagine navigating some of that of like, whoa, what is this feeling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and so some of it some of it you'll attach to. I mean, maybe as a male or what, I don't know. You attach as like, ugh, what is going on with it? Am I having an emotional breakdown or something?
Yeah,
But the more I prayed about it, and that's what I encourage people to do. Like, just, I mean, get in the Word, get alone with the Lord, and just ask Him, like, what is going on inside of me? Help me understand. And then with you know my wife and people around me is just like, what is this? And I've been talking to my own siblings about it,
yeah,
because
that's
they grew up in the same
huge.
environment I did. So
Right, right. Although what's wild about it too, I have an older brother, 3 years older, and it's amazing. I don't know what the age span is with you guys, but like just a few years, where like what you experience, when you experience it, the age you experience it, your DNA, all that stuff. Like some of my brother's perspectives
oh,
are completely different than mine,
oh
even
yeah,
though he's just 3 years older than me.
oh
It
yeah,
is it's wild.
yeah.
Some of
We
those
would say,
shared
yeah, different
experiences
parents.
have
Yeah,
produced completely different fruit.
yeah. We would say,
Yeah.
yeah, what parent did you? That's not the parent I grew up with. And we say that all the time.
Exactly. What house were you living in? Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. So I want to talk more about seasons because you guys have navigated some incredible seasons. I mentioned some of it in the introduction, but I want to equip people because a lot of people that will be hearing this will have heard the other episodes where we've gone deep on this. But for somebody that's just meeting you for the first time, let's talk a little bit about the identity method in that toolbox because I want to talk about how you guys have navigated seasons, sometimes choosing it, sometimes having it thrust upon you. But I want to equip people that are again meeting you for the first time and kind of new to this conversation. Let's talk about some of the tools that are in the identity method toolbox because that's going to help us navigate talking about changing seasons. So, if you were to walk people through at a high level, walk us through the identity method and that approach and some of the key tools in the toolbox.
yeah. Well, so the whole idea is that when you're, just like I've been saying, as you're growing up, 0 to 7, you're developing a view of yourself. It's really that age range is when you're discovering who you are, and all of who you are is coming from what other people are saying about you or experiences you're having. So it's all this
Yeah.
external, which is the way you do it, is this external input for you to like figure out, who am I? And then,
Yeah.
as you get past 7 onward, then it's like, what do I do? And who's my tribe? Like, it goes out, but it starts with that, who am I? And so when you're in that age range, you're just experiencing all the emotion you're ever going to experience in life. It's all your experience, and you're starting to put words, because memory can't come until you can put words to something. And so you're developing these things. And so, however that happens, I mean, even with the best parents in the world, you're going to hear things that hurt you or traumatize
Yep.
you, and trauma's relative to it.
Yep.
There's people
For
that
sure.
horrendous abuse and somehow come out of it amazingly, and there's others that their mom says one negative thing and it just ruins them. So it's like, it's relative to the person. So you never want to tell a person you had trauma and you didn't have trauma, or that was major trauma and that was minor trauma. It's trauma. And in the trauma, it hurts you, and so you will develop ways to deal with the pain. So, like for example, for me, so one thing that would happen to me a lot is like my mom would say, "You're a disappointment," and she was doing it to like motivate me, like, "Don't be a disappointment to God, don't be a disappointment." But all I could hear was, "You're a disappointment," and so in that it develops a kind of like, well, I'm embarrassed that I disappoint people, or shame. And so then I take on the identity of I'm a disappointment at a very deep level. And I don't know I'm doing that, but that's what's happening. And so
Yep.
then you very quickly learn what am I going to do with I'm a disappointment? You can only do one of two things with that. Either you accept it and you just live the disappointment the rest of your life, which is ruinous, or you figure out, okay, I'm going to figure out how not to be a disappointment. And
Mm.
that's your one. Both of these are coping mechanisms. One is I just quit,
Yep.
and the other
Yep.
is I'm gonna never disappoint another person the rest of my life. And then you become the overachiever, the people pleaser,
Yeah.
the whatever, the most spiritual person in the room. Also ruinous. They're
Right.
both
Exactly.
true. So all of us develop these shadow identities or imposter identities, whatever you want to call it, the ego. And all it is, it's your attempt to develop coping mechanisms to deal with traumatic situations in your life. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the longer you go, the deeper they go, and the more the negative gets affirmed. Like then you go to first grade or second grade, and the teacher says, well, you failed that test, and then there it is, I'm a disappointment. And you've built
I'm a
these
failure.
neural pathways that every time something happens in the present, it goes right back to the amygdala. Like, there it is. Like, we got to avoid these situations where you're a disappointment. How do we avoid them?
Yep.
Don't ever do anything where you're a disappointment, and only do things where you can succeed. Or again, you just don't participate. So that's the false identity, the negative. So the process that we just discovered, really working in conflict zones with people in gangs, really was how using that negative emotion, because your present circumstance is not the cause of your pain. It's all the present circumstances is triggering what you already believe about yourself or God or the
Mm.
world that you're in. It's all set in your experience. And so what we're doing is, okay, so you're experiencing right now fear or guilt or shame or anger. Okay, let's talk about how does that make you feel? Name the feeling that you feel when you're afraid. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Okay, that's an identity statement. Then we say, make an I am statement. I'm a failure. I'm a disappointment. I'm unworthy. I'm invisible. All these statements that people believe deep down inside of themselves, and they're just trying to figure out how to cope with it in the
Yep.
day-to-day life. And
Yeah.
negative emotion is the gift that keeps pointing back to where it's a signal. It's a sign pointing to, like, where did I start believing I'm a disappointment? Where did I first start engaging that lie about myself? And then that's the identity method is, okay, let's go back to that moment, because your brain's recorded the whole thing. And in
Right.
that moment, I do this every day actually every day with people. I do this process, and it's pretty quick, and it's very human. It's very spiritual, but you can do it with Muslims, and it doesn't matter who
That's what I wanted to interrupt because I love that, I'm a Jesus guy. I know you're a Jesus
yeah,
guy. Like that's, but you have done this in all parts of the world with all different belief systems. You've done it within organizations where you cannot mention anything, quote unquote, spiritual
that's
or
right.
religious or whatever. You're still able to navigate this identity method in a really powerful way, which I love. And,
Right.
I think if it's true, it's probably God's truth, right? Like it's a gift. So I love that you're operating in that. So yeah, for that person that's like, hold up, I'm not a Christian
Yeah.
or I'm not a Jesus person, whatever. But like, I love that you are still working with people, literally around the world using this strategy. So I'll stop the interruption. Now we'll get
No,
back
that's
to like,
and
now
that's
you've identified that thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you identify that false me. So, like, I was talking to a guy the other day. He's a very accomplished guy, and his frustration is he said, I just don't have any inner peace. I'm successful. Here's what I've done. He said, but no matter, he said, every day I feel like an imposter. But when you look
Mm.
at his job record and his
Yeah.
marriage and all that, he's like,
Accomplishments, all that. Yeah.
he doesn't feel it inside. He's
Yeah.
he's anxious about things. And I said to him, "Tell me what's the feeling you feel?" And he said it's kind of a kind of fear. And I said, which is always what it is, fear. And I said, "What are you afraid of?" And he said that one day someone's going to walk in and just find out I'm an imposter in everything I do. Which I can tell him all day long is ridiculous, but it doesn't matter. Somewhere
Right.
inside of himself, he has become convinced that what you see is not actually true. And so it's
Yeah.
causing him all this stress. And so I said to him, okay, so what's trying to say what the fear is? You're afraid that you're an imposter, okay, but like what does that mean? And he said, it's just like I feel like I don't really even trust myself. Like all of it's just not
Wow.
reliable and it could all fall apart tomorrow. And this is common for people, especially successful people that they struggle with imposter syndrome and all that stuff. I don't deserve this or whatever. And so I said to him, okay, so just, we're not, this is not a Christian conversation. This is like you said, true is true. That's what we're talking about. And truth, when humans experience and know truth, it sets them free. That is the rule in
Yep.
our universe. So what is the truth? And so what's not true creates conflict. So what's inside of him, the reason it's creating such conflict is because what he believes about himself is not true. And if he knew what was true about himself, it would bring peace. So I just told him that. And I said, so I can't tell you what's true, and you can't make yourself believe what's true, but you could experience what's true right now. And I wish I could tell you his profession, but his profession is like no emotion, zero. He's very strategic. And I said, so let me just do an exercise with you. Okay, you believe that you can't trust yourself or that you're not reliable, and it makes you feel like an imposter, and that makes you feel ashamed. Okay, so I just want you to think for a second, just relax and breathe. I'm doing this
Yep.
on the phone with him. I've never met him. I'm just doing this on the phone
That's
with him.
amazing.
And I say, so I can't see him. And I say, okay, just relax. I want you to try and remember, because your brain remembers this. It's all there. Just let yourself remember, when's the first time in your life you realized that you can't trust yourself? You can't trust what you really think inside, that it's false or fake. Just think. And he says, and just tell me what you remember thinking like that. Let your mind just relax. And he goes, that's weird. This is what they always say. He goes, that's really weird. I'm remembering riding in the car with my dad. And my dad was asking me a question about, something I want to be when I grow up. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he tells his dad what he wants to be. And his dad says to him, "Oh, you'll never be that. You'll never be. You're not good enough to be that. So that's not a valid idea. That's not a valid
Yeah.
answer.
Shoot lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me another answer that's less than that." And I said, "How old are you when that happened?" 7.
Wow.
And that's mostly where people will go, right in that first grade, second grade.
And it will probably be like, I'm guessing most of the time people will say something like, I haven't thought about this ever, or I haven't thought about this forever.
Right.
And then you're like, yeah, let's go there. That's
right.
That's probably right on the money.
Because
Wow. And and as a imperfect dad myself, like his dad's intent was to not, be mean. His dad's intent was probably to try to keep his kid safe, right? Or to make it so that his kid wouldn't move away, or so his kid wouldn't get hurt.
Right.
So my heart breaks when I hear something like that. But at the same time, you're like, I get what the dad was doing. Like, I understand it. So yeah. So okay. So he has that memory.
Mm-hmm.
That is it reveals probably where that root started. Where did you go next?
Yeah. So then he said, and then he's very moved by, he's like, wow. And yeah, his parents are true. They're trying to manage expectations, and they don't want you false, you're never going to do that. But, and so none of it's bad. It's just how it's received. Right. And it broke his heart. And what he said was, I just feel like any idea I have is not going to be a really good idea. Like, it's too lofty, or I'm not going to be able, so I can't trust myself. Well, if you're living your life with this, I can't trust myself or my dreams or it's pretty debilitating. I said to him, okay, so for whatever reason your parents said that. I'm sure it was, wasn't trying to hurt you and all that. He didn't think that at all. I said, okay, so but how did that make you feel? And he said, yeah, he said it made me embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I said it. Like I didn't want anyone to know what I really thought after that. Like I didn't want to say any more about things inside of me. So that's the imposter syndrome. See, so he's got all this out here, but he won't talk about what's really inside of himself. And what if it gets exposed? And there it is. And so I said, okay, so that hurt you, and he was fairly emotional talking about it. Like
I
it
bet.
caught him off guard. And I said, okay, so let yourself. Can you tell me what did the situation look like? Let your mind wants to remember it. Like let it remember it. Tell me what did the car look like and what did it feel like? And he's saying, yeah, we were driving here and all of that. And I said, okay, now, so you were in the back seat of the car. Your parents were up front. Let me ask you a question. So with you in that place, because we're receiving our identity from external sources, I said, so let's say in that place, in the back seat with you was absolute truth was sitting there next to you. The absolute truth is sitting there next to you, or unconditional love is sitting next to you to be with you at 7. Can you imagine that? Can you see that in your mind, what that would look like? And he said, yeah. He goes, yes, I can. I said, what did it look like? And he said, it's like, it was like like a hero like a person that was a hero, but he not distinct, just like there was a person sitting next to me.
Yeah.
That's like someone I really would be a hero to me, like above anyone else. And I said, okay, that's cool. He goes, and then I said, tell me how that's unconditional love. He goes, well, it wasn't judging me. It was like there for my benefit. And I said, okay, what does unconditional love say about you? And he was just silent. And I said, just listen, because you listened for the other one. So just listen for the negative. Listen for like, what would love say to you? We just did this with a bunch of public school teachers. It was so much fun. And he said, he got real emotional. He goes, it's telling me that I'm enough, that I'm enough. And he was really quiet. And I said, I just let him sit there and think about it. And I said, okay. And so how old were you when this happened? 7. I go, at age 7, when love's telling you you're enough, what have you done? Like, what have you done to prove that you're enough?
Right. He said, what have you done at a 7-year-old to be worthy of that? Right. Like nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And I said, and now you're whatever age he is now. And I said, you were enough starting at age 7. How now could you look at your career? How could you not be enough now? Like that's impossible. When you were enough just by virtue of who you are, not by what you did. Now that you're still that person, but now you've done all this other cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and that man, he was just silent. So I said, the peace that you'll have is when you let love continually remind you every day, you've always been enough for me. You've always been enough for me. And that was it. That's all he needed.
Come on. That's got to be fun to look around and go, this is my day job. Like,
I know. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. Like that is amazing. And what I love about that is like, that absolute love is God. Like that is your truth. That's my truth. But like, you're then not moving into a debate with him saying, okay, now you need to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. Like you can let that love just continue, let that relationship continue to grow and blossom and let it play out. That, I mean, that is beautiful.
Yeah. And then because he would say, listen, love has communicated to me from, it's not me. Cause that wouldn't change. That doesn't change anybody. If you do some kind of meditative, self-affirmation, we all would have done that already. He knows this is not him. And he knows it's true because he would have never said that to himself. He would have never told himself he's enough.
Right. That's not inner dialogue he would have come up with. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what happens is, we've been watching this over years, is he'll start pursuing that voice. Yeah. Because he knows it's other than him, and he'll start pursuing it. And so when we're doing this, because, we're Christ followers, is when we're talking about unconditional love or absolute truth, we only use terms. And that's all I've ever heard people say is they'll say, well, it's like there's a bright light. Every image they say, I can show you in Scripture. Even people, even they'll say like, well, it's like a doorway. It's like a doorway or something, or you know, it's like there's a plant with a vine. Like all of these are ways God refers to God's self, so that they don't ever go outside Scripture. It's so fascinating. And if they do, we bring them. It's going to hurt them, and we'll bring them back in.
Right. Right. That helps to acknowledge that, okay, that, well, that's not true. Right. So, come on. That is amazing. I love it. I thank you so much for that story. Every time we talk, it's so great. Like, I love the identity method because the core elements remain the same,
Yeah.
but each individual person walking through those core elements, it's like, oh my gosh, that's the best story ever, right? Like and you have so many great stories from that. I love it. So thank you for walking us through the framework. Now let's move into our subject of seasons.
Yeah.
Because as I've been thinking about seasons and I've been praying about seasons, I'm excited about the current season I'm in, all those things, right? And it is that order, disorder, reorder. I love that trio, because that's definitely what I've been walking through recently as well. I was thinking, like, who do I want to talk to about seasons? And you and Donna came to mind immediately because you have made choices, in some cases, to move to the other side of the planet, to be a force for good in the Middle East, in some of the most dangerous conflict zones in the world. You decided to come back to the United States and pick cities and towns that weren't necessarily the easiest places to live, right? So it's interesting. Like, I started to think about, you guys have chosen seasons, and not because of easy circumstances. I mean, you were in Indonesia, you were serving, you were loving on people at a time where the government was beginning to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Embassy said, you guys need to leave, and everybody was leaving. Talk us through that, because that was a situation where you chose to stay in a place where circumstance would have said, leave now, leave yesterday. Because it wasn't just you and Donna, it was you and your 3 boys too. So just walk us through. I want people to understand that you're not, like, circumstance has to go into the decision-making process.
Right.
But like, that's not the deciding factor for you. So like, walk us through that season just so we can start to talk about how you guys make decisions.
Yeah. Well, I think seasons is a really good way to talk about it, because obviously when we moved over there, we worked for the Indonesian government. We had already for a number of years before this happened. So we were employed there, but, sorry. But then, so like when the government, everyone knew it was going to collapse. I mean, it was just a storm brewing, and it was going to happen. And so a lot of the expatriate community from all the different countries were like, get your people out of here, because there's not going to be a police department and there's not going to be a military. The whole thing's
because when a government falls, we're not just talking about, there's not going to be toilet paper. Like, there's not police, there's not the military. Like, it's chaos.
Yeah. And when you're in trouble, there's like nobody to call. Like, that's the that's the weirdest sensation, is like, there is nobody to call. You're it. This is it. And so, like, we knew that was happening, and we knew the currency was already inflating to where it was just going to collapse. So you weren't going to be able to buy anything. And so in that time, the storm is brewing, and there's so many good, the scriptures are so powerful in this kind of decision making. But the way we think about everything, Don and I and others, is like, we never decide to do anything for God. Like, that's never how we think about it, because you get in a lot of trouble doing stuff for God that you come up with. Our question is, what is God inviting us into? That's always a question. So it wasn't just like, we're going to stay and weather this out because we're tough and we're going to prove, trust
we're doing this for God. Yeah.
That's a good way just to get yourself killed for no reason. That's not smart. That is not smart.
Yeah, right.
That is not wisdom.
That's not wisdom. You're exactly right.
Wisdom is asking the Lord, what do you want me to know, and what do you want me to do? That's wisdom. That's what
That
James
is
is saying.
wisdom.
And so,
And I love that. Like that is a surgical question
yes,
too of, well, Lord, what are you inviting us into?
that's right.
Right? Not what are you asking us to muscle through, or what are you asking us to do that proves something or whatever. Like, what are you inviting us into?
Right,
I
because
love that.
the false identity will be there to prove something. The false identity, like, I want to
Yeah.
prove that we really love God more than everybody else and all that stuff. That's all false. And that's incredibly dangerous. In fact, we don't want people working with us that have that attitude.
Yeah.
Our attitude is humble. It's because obedience is better than sacrifice. Obedience is better than sacrifice. So the question is, and obedience is the Hebrew to hear and respond. So the what you want is like, hey, Lord, this is, we see this is happening. We want to do what you would have us do, because that's greater than any like dying for you and all this other stuff you
Yeah.
might like put out there. And so our question is, what do you want us to know about the situation? That's really important, because when you think about, well, okay, the government's going to collapse, there's not going to be any military, we're foreigners, the foreigners are going to get targeted first in any kind of uprising. You think you know what's going to happen in the situation based on this. You don't know. See, that's where we make a mistake. Like, God, I know what's going to happen here. We're going to get hurt. We need to get out. Instead of saying, Lord, we actually don't know what's going to happen. You know. So what do we need to know? What do you want us to know about the situation that we don't know? And then once we know that, what do you want us to do? Right? That's huge,
Yeah.
because we're always telling God what's going to happen.
Yep.
Always.
Bring our to-do list to God.
Yeah. Well, like, if I go in this neighborhood, I'm going to get robbed and murdered. I know that's going to, like, you don't know. No, you don't know that. You do not know
Yeah.
that. Stop telling God what you know. Ask him what he wants you to know and move with that part of it. And so we have great friends that were with us there, and their prayer was the same as ours. And the Lord to them was, I want you out of here. And they, in obedience, left. So we don't ever compare ourselves to anybody else. That's not the point. That's a waste of time too. The thing is, Lord, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? And so just as we prayed through that, mainly because of our neighbors who were Muslims who couldn't go anywhere, who couldn't.
Right. Yeah. They didn't have any choice to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that it was more as a witness to them, which sounded really like the Lord, like stand with them, show them, that I'm faithful because they need to see it. So that was more like, for the sake of your neighbors, I'm inviting you to stay. And what he always says, when we're in tough situations, he never says, well, here's the way out. He always just says, and I will be with you, and I'll be with you. Like Moses said, if you're leaving, I'm leaving. If you're staying, I'm staying. But and so that was it. It was just, and it was very carefully prayed through, and both had to agree. And then it had to make sense to our kids who were like 8th grade, 6th grade, and 3rd grade. They knew what was going on. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they could pick up on it, right? Yeah.
And they learned fear from us, right?
Yep.
Kids learn fear from us. And so I wanted them to not be afraid. And I wanted to show them, when something like this is coming, you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to run. You have to just seek wisdom from the Lord and stay with him on it. Whatever he says, leave, we'll leave, stay, we'll stay. And I wanted them to see that, because, when will they get those kinds of experiences in life, and so that's what we decided to do. And I want to emphasize, like, I'm very strategic about things. So when we decide to stay, it's not like, oh, we're just going to stay and we don't care what happens. I mean, we took every precaution possible.
Yeah, you were teaching the boys what to pack, how to climb out windows, right? Like things like that. It wasn't like, okay, guys, now let's go watch some movies in the living room. It's like, God, we need to be ready for whatever comes. Yeah.
So you want to be smart and strategic. And I wanted them to know, like, okay, if something happens, you go that way and we'll reassemble at the end of this rice paddy, and here's 5 paths. And we would just do it every day, like a game. And so that because
Well, it's like, it's like having an escape plan if your house is on fire, right? Like
right,
that's just wisdom.
right,
But it's because I do think people are like, well, I'm putting my trust in the Lord. Well, that's great. And what is your part in that, right? Like, like, how do you be strategic at that? So that's amazing.
yes,
And your boys are walking out like amazing lives because they grew up knowing, like, okay, this is how we do it.
that's right, yeah. And they're very methodical how they think about things, but they're never gonna not do something because they're afraid of it. That's one thing they won't
Yeah.
do. We all make mistakes and everything, but they
Sure.
have
Well, I mean, isn't that also a part of learning to walk with God is to
yeah,
go, okay, well, we're not going to do it perfectly every time.
right,
And then to see God still be in that too. Right. So that was it, like, and we could talk about Indonesia and your experiences there and all of that for 4 hours in and of itself. Walk me through a more recent big decision for you guys. How have those rules, like, what does it look like in a more recent season? How did this process guide you, in one of your more recent
yeah, I
moves?
think yeah for so. So yeah, I know I can't give a ton of details about this, but we were challenged a while ago, a couple of years ago, about could we is there a person came to us and said, we'll give you funding if you come up with can you come up with a way to think about fighting human trafficking that's not been done before. So when someone comes to you and says something like that, I like invitations. That's what I like. I don't like to come up with stuff on my own. I love invitations. One of the prayers we pray all the time with our people and ourselves is, God, what are the things that I'm doing right now for you that you never invited me into? That's a good prayer, just
That's a
a
good
safety
prayer.
prayer. Because
Yeah,
I'll get
exactly.
stuff.
It's a liberating, sometimes offensive, always eye-opening prayer,
Yeah,
right? Like, wait, what?
yeah.
Yeah,
What? You didn't invite me in this? Yeah, that's why you don't like it. That's why you have no joy in it. That's why.
right.
That's why. Because
Well, and that I think I just interrupt. I'm going to jump on that for just a second because especially as I've been, as we've been hanging out, I've been spending more time with you, really understanding identity and the importance of identity and the power of identity. It is such a powerful process. It is so eye-opening. And it's like getting a new set of glasses. I can remember the last time I got glasses where I actually finally got bifocals and was like, oh, I guess I've been blind.
right,
You get that new set of glasses, like, oh my gosh, it's a different world, right? And identity is a lens like that. But I think one of the other interesting things of it's once you start functioning in your identity more, and whether it's just our humanity or that's where the enemy goes, well, I can't come against identity. I'll just try to pile on,
right.
like add to, right? And I think that on as you start to walk in your identity more, I think that is definitely one of the distinct ditches that can happen. So I love that question of like, hey, what have I picked up lately or whenever that you didn't ask me to carry? That's
Yeah,
huge.
and you start losing your joy, and that's what happens. You start losing your joy, and then you're like, where did that go? Because you can't manufacture joy, and then you have to go back to learn, like, where did we miss this? And for me, a lot of time, it's like this image of like you said it before we came on. It's like you're putting rocks in a backpack that you're carrying, and you're slowing down and losing your way. And it's then when I'm like, what, like, why don't I know what I'm doing? Like, why don't I know where this is going? And it's like the Lord's 3 miles ahead of me, and He looks back at me, He's going like, how long are you going to keep putting rocks in that backpack? Because you're slowing down. Drop the
That's right. And I don't know about you, but oftentimes that conversation initially will be I will be mad at God
oh
for
yeah,
all the rocks in my backpack. Like what you're asking me that question? Look at all these rocks I got in my backpack,
yeah,
like and he's like, "Yep, didn't ask for you to put one of them in there."
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you're
So,
too fast, and
yes.
He's like, no, actually, I'm going the same speed. You're slowing down.
That's right. That's right. So you started to have a little bit of that, or that realization of like, hey, maybe I'm carrying some things I wasn't supposed to carry.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of the seasons too. Like if you're getting invited into a new season, a lot of times we take it as like a rocket ship taking off, and you need those big boosters to get to a certain level. But then there's a time that you got to drop those things. Like they got us here, great. Now it's time to drop because we can't go to the next level until you get rid of this part. Valuable for a while, now it's not. And again, that's going back to the Lord saying, "What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? What's your invitation?" And he's like, I can't bring the false with the false is never going to respond to this. So you want to stay in the true identity. So when I look for invitation more and then my prayer is always like, are you inviting us into this? Are you inviting us into this, Lord? Or are we doing this for some kind of motivation? Just try and like keep your heart right,
Yep.
and pure. And so this person said, would you think about, another way to deal with human trafficking? And so that to me was a big invitation, and I went really slow and cautiously into that world because it's a difficult world. And the Lord, I just started having, okay, here's an idea what we could do and gather these people, and the idea came up that there's lots of good people rescuing victims and lots of people going after justice, going after traffickers and incarcerating them and all that, but is there anybody just trying to win the traffickers to Christ? Like that's what came to my mind.
Right.
Like
Let's go to a different part of the source, or like a different whole area of the chain that most people are not working on.
right.
Yeah.
And so I called a bunch of guys I knew, men and women in law enforcement areas, and got them together and said, let's think about this and let's pray about this. But everyone had to understand their identity. So critical that everyone understands their identity. And so that we'd all pray, because each identity sees it from a different perspective. And if you get like the body, like have a body, as Paul
Yep.
says, and the whole body's there, man, that thing really works.
Well, and I want to interrupt because I want to clarify, especially for somebody that's maybe new to this approach and kind of this perspective. You're not talking about getting everybody into the room and say, okay, what is everybody's title?
Yeah.
Like, what department are you from? That's not what you're talking about with identity here. You're talking about getting people in the room and saying, what is your identity? Where do you thrive? We're not talking titles. We're not talking jerseys.
Right.
We're not talking teams.
Right.
We're talking identity.
Right. Because teams divide the room, right? They separate
Yep.
the room. And to have a body, it all has to work together and not compete with one another. So if you bring people in from different agencies or organizations and they start naming their organizations.
Yeah. Number of years in the role, their titles.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And people feel inferior, and then they got to protect themselves and defend themselves. And so when we're asking people, just would you identify, say who you are to the group, they'll say, they'll say their first name, and then they'll say their sense of their own identity, right? So like, I'm a lover of the innocent, or I'm a protector of the guilty. That's how they talked about themselves. I'm an untier of knots, or I'm a timeless life giver. And when they all went around the room and said it, you knew it, not only, who they are, you actually knew what they're going to contribute just by them saying that. Right. And so, it was two, because one of the guys was lover, protector of the innocent, and the other guy was lover of the guilty. Well, if you're going to have a good go after, traffickers, if you don't have someone that wants to protect the innocent and someone that loves the guilty, you get one-sided. But those two together, they balanced each other so beautifully, because, hey, we're about protecting the innocent. I know, but we got to love the guilty too. Otherwise, we're just going to get hardcore incarceration or too late.
And had you met with each of them individually, or did you do that identity exercise as a part of that group? Like, there's a part of me that goes, okay, was this 6 months of prepping each individual person, or was this a couple of hours of getting clear on identity in the room?
Yeah.
Because we're talking a major initiative, and I know you don't play small. So like, for that group, was it 6 months of prep with each individual, or was it 2 hours of prep?
No, for that group, they had to be super clear on who they were. Otherwise,
surgical to be in the room.
So those people, when I called each one of them, I called who I already knew who they were. They were from
Yeah.
different
And had been operating in
they
that.
knew
Yeah.
they came together because I'll tell you what was interesting in that gathering was for some of them one of the guys in the room said asked a question. He said, okay, because we came up with a workable plan because nothing's impossible. So you put the right identities together and you're seeking wisdom from God, nothing nothing's impossible, like
Yeah.
because
I'll never forget one time. I don't know if you'll remember this, but one time we were talking and you brought up another scenario that was like that. I mean, this is your life, right? Like, this is just so cool. And I asked you, I was like, I stopped and I was like, Jamie, how do you pay for something like that? And you looked at me and you were like, Mitch, that's the wrong question. Like, and you then explained that in that particular initiative, I can't remember exactly what you guys were working on, but you're like, three of those people in the room just find funds. They're like, they just tap into abundance and provision,
right.
and
Mhm.
you're like, like that. But you also were quick to say, I don't know, because that's not my identity. Like, that's not what I do. So I love that wisdom that has never left me. Like, oh yeah, I was asking the wrong question. I was asking the question like, how do I get money to pay for people like this being in the room and doing something amazing like this? And you're like, no, that's not the question. Like, who do you know that does that? Let's get them in the room, right? Like, so I love this kind of thing for you, right? And this is normal life. This is living in the kingdom for you.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like it's not like how do we do it? It's who's the identity that we need for this to work. That's how we think. So you have identities like we're the bringer of wealth, or like those are identities that people have, and so that's the identity you want in the room. If you have a bunch of people who that's not their identity, they're no good at doing it, and they get bitter, they get fresh. Like you don't want them doing that part. You want the identity your identity is your gift to the world. So what tell us what that identity is and we'll know what gift you're bringing to the group,
Yep.
right?
And I know, like one of the other stories we talked about with this, like three people left the room. Like, when people are operating in their identity, they're also not worried about getting credit. They're
Right.
also not, it's the, not self promotion, not self protection. But like, you were like, three people left the room that's their identity. That's what they operate in, and they came back with full funding, and we don't even fully know how they did it, but they just do it. That's what they do, right? and
Right.
and nobody was worried about the credit, and the people that brought the funding didn't get any less credit, or it wasn't about credit, but like, they weren't somebody that brought something else that might be more touchy feely,
Right.
whatever, right? Like, the money people didn't get elevated status over the person with systems or whatever, right? Like, that's the beauty of operating an identity. Honestly, that is what I think heaven is like. That's heaven on earth. Like, more of that, please. Two
Yeah.
scoops of that, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes it, when when you're working together in a group, a team like that, or a community like that, or whatever, it just makes it more joyful because each person is operating in what brings them joy. And they're, and though when a person's operating in joy, they operate at a higher level of excellence. Like you can't beat a person operating in joy. If you have teams, if you have, we just had a bunch of professional NFL and coaches together doing a roundtable on what makes a good team, and they talked about the difference between playing with fear, where you're worried about getting hurt or how much money you make, versus joy. They said there's no comparison. A person playing with joy is free. They can overcome mistakes faster. They're not worried about, did this guy do better than me? Am I going to lose my job next year? Like they just play at this pee wee league mentality level of like, let's just
Right.
as
They're getting back to the art of the game, like what they really got into the game for.
that's right.
And it's amazing when you see people, they start carrying that stone backpack, right? Like,
That's right.
they start picking up all these things that then take the joy, and then also then take the ability to perform
Yeah.
at that higher level,
Yeah.
right?
And you
So
tense up, you're afraid of mistakes. And so, yeah, I mean, so when you got a team like that, and so that's what these folks did. And we put together a strategy on what to do of like, how would it work strategically on the ground? It's like we said earlier, it's not dream world. It's like these identities are together. We're asking God a specific question in our identities together as humans who are co-creators with God. Here's an issue that we're facing. Give us wisdom about it. And man, the only thing that, and we say this all the time, if you're going to ask for wisdom, our prayer before you ask for wisdom is give us the courage to do what you're getting ready to give us wisdom about.
Yeah.
Because a
Yeah.
lot of people will ask for wisdom, they have an idea and they're like, yeah, but we'll never be able to do that. Don't do that. Just say, okay, we're going to ask for wisdom. Let's pray we have the courage to do whatever we're going to come up with, because we're going to come up with it. And so we came up with this plan, and it worked. I mean, it's a workable plan. It's got to work on the ground in real life with people that are not nice, that don't agree with us.
Right.
And
Yeah. A lot of people don't want to see this succeed, right? Yeah.
for the traffickers don't want to see it succeed. People that
Right.
don't like traffickers, and that was a big issue in the room, because one of the guys said at the end, he said, like, "Are we willing to die for these people? Like, some of us in this room are going to have to die over this. Are we willing to die for people that sell kids?" And that was a hard question for the group. Like, really, are we going to move somewhere and live in a place where we're going to endanger ourselves or our families for people that are probably the lowest form of humanity that we know?
Right.
Our challenge was Christ, of course. That was our
Yeah. Right.
he would. So, but that was tough for people, and so when we got through all of that, and so that whole process has taken a long time, and then to develop
Yeah.
a team to do it and all that. But the reason I love that you're asking me that question is like, because that was a big invitation for us. It was difficult to do. It required funding. It required risk. We had to go. It's an overseas project. We had to go over there and keep scoping it out. And just in the last probably 48 hours, we've had just our biggest breakthrough in it. And with serious dudes coming out of that world because of the love of the guys that went in there to get them, and the transformation that's occurring in them is
And I love, and again, we're friends, but also I follow you, and not necessarily stalker level, but just the side of restraining order level, right? Like, what I love is that all these things are happening with you, and I do recommend, we will put all in the show links. Follow Jamie, follow him on social. There's so much great content. He's putting so much value out there, but like, you can't talk about projects like this publicly, right? Like, it's just, I look at some of your stuff, and whether you're traveling or speaking or whatever, I'm like, I wonder what else he's doing in that city while he's there or whatever. Like, you just know, you're like, okay, we can't promote that. That's not what this is about. We don't need to promote that. That's not your job in this. But still, you're getting to be a part of these things that God is doing with you.
Yeah.
You're not doing them for God. God is doing them with you
Right.
as an invitation, right?
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it. So, all right, I don't want to, but we've got to start wrapping this thing up, because I'd keep you for 4 hours if I could. So, two things. One, I know one of the places we want to point people is identityexchange.com. That's where people can find out more about what you and Donna are doing in the world. They can be learning from you, taking classes, courses, all those things too. Where else should people go? If you're going to send them one other place, where would you recommend
We have a
a
new site called identityimpact.com, which is our more of our public facing material, like you've been talking about. It's more for people that may not have grown up in the faith background, that goes more into the public sphere. And so these resources of like, how would I, if I'm a believer and I want to talk to people that don't have that language, how would I do that? Identity method, we call that. Identity impact is our attempt to go into other places in our culture that we can't discuss with a lot.
And that's identityimpact.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Nice. I like that a lot. I love it. Yeah. All right. So, and we'll put that in the show notes as well, but I just wanted to make sure that we got people pointed where you want them to go. As we're wrapping this up, when you think about seasons, when you think about identity, when you think about the things we talked about, what would be one last parting shot of wisdom that you'd want people to have?
To think that seasons are part of our reality. And changing seasons is part of the reality that we're in, and we should never be surprised by changing seasons, and we should never think that seasons don't change. To get into one thing and just lock down on it forever is kind of counter to the reality that we're in. And so even in when we lived in the world that only had rainy season and dry season, there's still all kinds of change. And
Yep.
so we should like change and movement. We should embrace it and we shouldn't be afraid of it. So it stagnates us and it bores us and it causes us to develop coping mechanisms out of boredom. So I would just say, expect change, anticipate it. But you can't make the seasons change. You can just move
Yeah.
with them when they do. That's the invitation.
That is
Summer's
the
coming.
invitation.
Summer's coming. So
Right.
you like it or not, so you can participate in it or wish it didn't happen, but it's coming and it's going to come, and we need to engage it. So that's what I love about it's the invitation of summer, and then it's the invitation of the autumn,
Yeah.
and we live.
Well, that's the thing. You live in a place now that has seasons,
Yeah.
right? I've been in Kingsport in the fall and I've been in the spring. And
Yeah.
I mean, like the color and all these things are great. But I think you're so right. We often as humans can get into that resisting change, or like even thinking a changing season represents failure, like
Right.
something that's not working anymore. Oh, that's failure. It's like, nah, I mean, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes things break. You got to fix them. Sometimes things are shifting because the season's shifting. So it's like, it's going back to the very things we talked about. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? Like, what's the invitation in this season?
Right.
So I love that, because we tend to resist shift, but that shift is also what makes life rich and amazing and allows us to be more of who we were created to be.
Yeah, and when you look at your little kids, and what if they're like, "Don't ever change. I want you to stay 5 the rest of your." Like, you don't want that. Like we want the change. It's beautiful, but so if you don't fight it, if you just keep moving from order to disorder to reorder, you got to go all the way through to the reorder. But man, it's a blessing. It's beautiful.
And let go some of that backpacker rocks, right? As you do.
Drop the rocks.
So, Jamie, I love you, brother. Thanks so much for coming back. I can't wait to have you back again. Every time is a gift. So
Thanks
thank
for
you. I
having me.
appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.